Look, I understand tonight that I'm talking to some wonderful, passionate Rotarians from a fantastic club. I know that because as part of my district governor role, I got to know the clubs very well indeed. So, my amazing leaders, and what was said about Chris Don, I heartily endorse. He should be a district governor at some stage. So you lot give him a good push in that direction, Lynn, I would say. I understand too that I'm talking to people who might be interested and know a little bit about Rotary and might want to take that step further. So we'll just run through a few ideas. Some of it for some long-standing Rotarians might be a bit provocative because Rotary is a changing organisation, an organisation in change. And that's no surprise because we live with constant change, don't we? We do in education for sure. So let's have a little look at what we do know about Rotary. And yes, we are open for business in Rotary. And yes, we welcome everyone who's interested in making a difference through our organisation. So you heard me talk at the start with the toast to say it's an international organisation. But here's the fantastic part that I love about Rotary. It was started with the idea of one relatively young man. But just an aside, this young man didn't grow up in traditional family circumstances. He spent a lot of time with his grandparents as a youngster. He got into a bit of trouble in primary school. He got into a bit of trouble at university and moved universities. And you know, this sort of says to me that any one of my Year 8 or Year 9 boys at Baden-Powell College could maybe start an organisation like Rotary some days. So I love that fact. I love the fact that in his mind, he just saw something that needed to be done. And he gathered some people around him, just people he knew. Friends, mates, we'd say in our day. And really, from there, just to shorten the whole story, that whole vision that he had has become the first and oldest global community vocationally based organisation. So how wonderful is that? Something that in this day and age when things come and go at the blink of an eyelid really, Rotary still exists. So it is a global organisation. There are some statistics for you, and it's still the #1 grassroots organisation focused on peace and making the world a better place. The wonderful part about Rotary clubs is that they are a representation of their community. They seek first, in almost every club that I'm aware of, to make their local community better for people in the community. And then my experience tells me that after that, so many clubs start to reach out to the broader community, the international community. And such exciting times are ahead for these two wonderful ladies on our table here when they hit Cambodia and see what can be done in that amazing country. There's some pretty extraordinary international projects, and the one that people think a lot of things about Rotary even to this day. They think it is a pretty exclusive sort of an organisation and you can't really get into it. They think it's a bit staid, and look, please don't be offended, but some people still think it's male, stale and pale. And of course we know that's not true, but the perception's out there still in some instances. But one thing that when you talk about Rotary, they'll say, oh, something about polio, something about polio. And oh boy, if you get a Rotarian talking about something about polio like Chris Don, he can tell you a lot about the work that Rotarians have done in that seeking to eradicate polio worldwide. And we're nearly there. Then we have programs and projects like disaster aid. Shelter Box is another one. And again, through Rotary, countries in need, instant need of families to have some sort of protection from the elements, Rotary jumps in through clubs, doing a bit of fundraising and providing just that basic support that's needed. And then this visual here is really just to represent in our closest neighbours in many cases, as well as every continent in the world, Rotary has a finger in the pie where Rotarians know there's a need for children, families, to get that really practical support that they needed. And I've just suggested some countries there that I know have benefited from Rotarians at work. And that's just to say that we have nearly eradicated polio, and it took a giant to do that. And of course the giant is that collective of the 1.23 million selfless people called Rotarians. And just as an aside, in our district now, we're looking at, through the Rotary Club of Melbourne's initiative, to end trachoma in Australia. Now, who would have thought that trachoma in a civilised and sophisticated country that we live in was still a problem? So stay tuned for more news there. I think that's going to be another very powerful Australia-wide project that we all hear more about as we go into the future. Absolutely amazing foresight by, again, another young man, a few years after Rotary was becoming established, with a bit of money left and no real sort of clear thought on what to do with it. A young man called Arch Clump said, well, let's just not spend it willy-nilly, let's just pool it and see what comes up that we can do with it. And again, that clear thought, practical thought, has led to a long-standing Rotary Foundation, 100 years old now, 100 years old. One of the top recognised charities in the States and worldwide. Financially managed with great accountability and really transparent in terms of it, and using, sorry, I got so excited sometimes that, and using a focus so that sustainability and balance in terms of the needs is achieved through the money that Rotarians graciously and willingly give to the foundation. So these are some areas of focus: peace and conflict, and I don't think there's any debate about the need for all of us to be very aware and working very hard so that, well, I'd like my grandchildren actually to grow up into a more peaceful world and a safe world. So I think that no one in Rotary debates that that's not a very worthy focus. Disease prevention, water and sanitation. 3 years ago I went to Cambodia and I live in a little townhouse, but I have 3 toilets. 3 toilets. I came home from Cambodia, sat down with my suitcase downstairs on the floor and thought I need to go to the toilet, which was a reasonable thought at the time. But then I cried. I cried because it all washed over me what I had seen in those remote villages in Cambodia. I cried for a little boy that's my grandson. Had he been born there, he wouldn't have nearly what he has here, and his parents aren't rich by any means. You know, I cried for the fact that these, at those time in the remote village that I was at, the only water they could access was just couldn't drink. You couldn't drink it. It was disease-ridden. I cried for the fact that these kids didn't have any education. And after that, being a bit silly, I suppose, and a bit emotional, decided then that we would do something about it. And we meant kids at my school, we meant our Rotary Club, we meant anyone who'd listen to the stories that we told. And I guess the really fantastic thing is now, Paul, and for those that are going, 3 years on, I've just come back and I've seen crops in those villages. I've seen, through foundation funding, the Rotary Club of Brighton developing a capture of rainwater that's now fresh water for villages. I've seen and painted water filters that are just being rolled out now to families. I watched Mandy Wendt, who's president of Malvern Park, helping drill a well. You know, we saw some ways that we could help people who had immediate health issues and something could be done about it. 3 years, 3 years only, I saw an amazing difference. So you will never shut me up now about what Rotary can do and what the foundation can do in really such a short time. It's just amazing. One, education and literacy, of course, I'm going to be very passionate about, and I won't go on too much about that. That's a whole other presentation. But economic development really excited me. We went to one village, Cress Village, that I'd seen 3 years ago, and all the things I described were starting to be quite apparent for every family. But what we did see that excited me, there was a lady with a sewing machine, and she was making these backpack bags that we were seeing in all the markets. And Bronwyn Stevens and I said, can we buy one, being bag ladies basically, and the husband said, no, 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 no. Why? Well, she was making them on consignment, wasn't she? It was a business for her. 3 years ago, they didn't have rice, they didn't have any means of even looking forward to something that she was doing. So I thought that was pretty special. Rotary in Australia, right close to home, there's some stats around that. I guess recycling through donations in kind. Someone on your table should talk to you a little bit about donations in kind. That's an amazing organisation in our district that's kind of taking over a few other districts as well, and ensuring again that products that we don't use, don't need anymore, hospital beds, computers. We took 40 laptops to Cambodia through donations in kind when we went. So lots of fabulous things happening in Australia at that level as well as the international level. And there's some examples of some of our projects that we're very proud of in our Rotary district. Interplast, Australian Rotary Health, and ROMAC, Rotary Oceania Medical Aid for Children, are all Australia-wide beyond projects that started with the vision again of one person and is now making such a huge difference. Not in Cambodia, much closer to home and in our own communities. So at our national level, there's a lot to be proud of and to kind of brag about, I suppose. So for these people who are here kind of not knowing a lot about Rotary but knowing a little bit maybe, or a lot about what a club does, you know, I'd ask sort of some of you, what does come to mind when you hear the word Rotary? And I won't put people on the spot. When I was District Governor, I had this amazing power and I'd walk up and say, Jim, what comes to mind when you hear the word Rotary? And Jim would say,
community support for projects in areas that need it.
That's good, isn't it? That's good. Give him a clap. That's good. I didn't prep him for that. And you know, Jim, for lots of different people, according to their experiences, they would say different things too, you know, and that's great. So thank you. I'm sorry I put you on the spot, but you did a great job. Did you notice Jim didn't say Rotary is a rich man's business group? Did you hear him say that? No, he didn't. Did you hear him say that it's kind of for old blokes who just want to have a coffee or a drink every now and again? He didn't say that, Lynn, either, did he? No, because that's not true. It's... Now stop it, you two over there. That's not true. So what Rotary really is about, though, it is about something pretty special, and that is that sense of community that brings people together. And I love Susie's sort of quote at the top, the awesomeness that can happen when some like-minded, passionate people come together with a problem or something they see that they can do something about is just incredible. And you know what happens when that happens? This kind of nebulous concept called fellowship that is fun and that is connectedness and that is soul satisfying is an outcome of it. And I asked some people in Rotary that when I was going to the club, some guys had been in Rotary for 60 years. This is true. It's true as I stand here. And I'd say to them, why on earth would you stay with any organisation for 60 years? Why? And you know what they said? It's the friends I made and the things we did. Every single time, that's what they said. Started off with just knowing someone, coming along, thinking I might be interested, finished with the friends I made and the things they did that were so satisfying. So if we want to look at it this way, it really does provide that opportunity to make a difference, no doubt about it. But what comes with that is amazing personal development. I'm a country kid who grew up on a dairy farm, milking cows, driving tractors, draft horses actually, if I'll give away my age initially, draft horses. And if you had said to me then, I would end up doing what I've done in Rotary, I just would not have believed it. It gives you opportunities for your own personal development as well. And the people you meet and the things that you can connect up with is extraordinary. I never thought I'd be driven around by this young man over here in that wonderful experience that I had, and I'm still grateful for that. So that's the networking that happens, the opportunities to build lasting friendships. And this whole business, anywhere you go around the world, it was my birthday yesterday, and Facebook, I had birthday wishes from the Philippines, from England, from different places around the world where I hadn't even been to the Philippines, but people have come and connected with you. And I guess it's moments like those when it reminds you that that friendship extends well beyond, you know, the people who are around you in a real close proximity. We talk a lot about recruitment for Rotary, and I don't know, I don't think we should sound desperate in any way for Rotarians. What we should do is just explain proudly what we do. I have, 1,500 students at my college. I have an Early Act Club, and that's pretty well Rotary for primary school students. I have an Interact Club, and that's Rotary for secondary school students. Those kids, everything that we experience in Rotary, those kids are experiencing at 10, 11, 12, up to 15 years of age. They want the same things. They want peace in their world. They want to know that they've made a difference. But you know what they want too? They want to know that something like Rotary's there for them because they've got a taste for it now. And I suppose what drives me now is saying to myself, we need to have Rotary there for them in that 5, 10, 15 years' time. Will it be the same as what it is now? We'll look at that in a moment. But if we are showing people what we do and the outcome of it, and we can see that beautifully represented here, if we are discussing the things that we do and engaging other people who have interest and passion and desire, and if we just appreciate the success that we have, I think we're going a long way towards people saying, aha, that's what Rotary's all about. I spoke to the current president, John Germ, a few years ago at Keith Ryle's conference, and he said to me, you know, he said, it's all about a 9-letter word. And I'm trying to be very... And he said, ask, ask, ask. So I always remember that. So, you know, it's as pretty simple as really just saying to people, do you want to come along and find out what we do? Do you want to just be a part of what we're on about? So it isn't about getting members. It's about showing people what Rotary does and then seeing what happens from there. I love the fact that people have been invited tonight, and I hope that that notion of joining in projects continues because it isn't about the weekly meetings. Here's what happens. You get seduced by something in Rotary. You can't help it if you have the experiences that I've had, and you don't want to miss a chance to catch up with your friends fairly regularly for a meal. That's how it works. But if you start off saying it's all about the weekly meeting, well, they wouldn't see a lot of me, would they? Because I'm here tonight. So we just have to start thinking about these things. Social media is an amazing thing, and more clubs are understanding now that they need to put it out there if people are going to see what they're doing. They need to put it out there. And I asked all the clubs a year or so ago to make sure that they had a Facebook page, public page, not a lovely little group that's nice and warm and cuddly, and 20 people in the group know what's going on. Something out there that says this is who we are, this is what we stand for, this is what we do, and this is what the difference it makes for children and families and people around us. We had a cultural diversity night at Wyndham, and we're looking at specific groups in our community as well, just to say this is Rotary, not to say you have to come and join, just to say this is who we are. So in terms of it, and I don't think you're going to have a problem here ever in this club, welcoming others. It just happened as we walked into the door. Not into the door, I didn't walk into the door. As we walked in the door. Being prepared to change. Lots of debates going on about that. Flexibility, the F word for Rotary at the moment is flexibility. And clubs have enormous opportunities now. And it will be an interesting journey for many groups of Rotarians as well. It really will. Because we don't need change for the sake of change. We need responsive practices for the people who are most affected by them. So let's hope that we continue with that. I'm happy with any club to work with a membership champion. The clubs that I'm working with, I'm saying the membership champion team will consist of the immediate past president, because what happens, Judy, is by the end of that frantic, wonderful, chaotic, rewarding year, is that you figured out what to do then, and then you're a past president. And that's why, as a past district governor, I know what to do now for membership, so I'm on board. I'm on board until we get 3,000 actually in our district, so hopefully it won't take 20 years or anything like that, but I'm on board. So I would like the immediate past president, I would like one of the newest members, because the newer members are going to say, this is what we want in our Rotary world, and an absolutely passionate person who really is brave enough to get out there and talk to people about what Rotary does. Checking in on new and prospective members, here's a statistic that's scary, and it's true. We bring people in to Rotary. We're pretty good actually at that, but somewhere between 18 months, 2 years to 3 years, they're leaving. They're leaving. Now, we can sugarcoat it any way we like, and we talk about exit interviews and we say, oh, they don't really tell us. Well, you know, I think if we really did some hard analysis about why people leave, I think you'd find it's because people sat there for 6 months or 8 months and no one said, what's your idea? What would you like to see happen? You know? So, a stat that we need to turn around. People need to, I think, come in, have such satisfaction and joy, and that their ideas are celebrated, appreciated and acted on, that they won't want to leave. They'll want to hang around to see things happen. And of course, establishing networking and friendships we've talked about. So that's my sermon on the Mount in relation to membership in Rotary. I think it's an amazing organisation. For me, it's been a life-changing experience. I'm very grateful for those 2 old guys who knocked on my door all those years ago and said, we need someone in education, Julie. We need someone in Wyndham in education. I said, okay then, but I'll tell you my little sad story. It's kind of amusing in a way. So I went along, and there were very few women at Wyndham then. In fact, there was 2. I was the second one. Sat next to this guy, and I can remember his name, but I won't say it. He was a very tall guy too, but nothing like you, okay? And I kept trying all night to make conversation with him, and I was nervous. You know, I'm a country kid, you know, just a teacher and coming into this amazing organisation of a whole range of professions that I didn't know much about, because I'm the person who's got up and gone to school for 60 years now, you see. So my range is a bit narrow. And in the end I said to him, so what do you do? And he said, I'm in communications. That is as true as I stand here. He's lucky, or they're lucky, that I'm a pig-headed, obstinate sort of person and I hung around. But boy, oh boy, that could have been a turning point for anyone, couldn't it? If you just sat there and someone didn't talk to you. So, but anyway, that's my story, and I'm happy to help in any way that I can, and happy for questions if that's going to be a help.